Welcome again to Culture Corner. On today's programme, we explore, through drama, what it means to be a child or teenager in the modern world. It is only too easy to assume that children and teenagers live in a state of blissful irresponsibility, whereas mature adults take on the serious issues in the world. Yet, in reality, it is often children that carry the burdensome consequences of adults' destructive behaviour, either towards children or amongst themselves. Edward Bond's new play, The Children, explores the emotional and physical violence that can be inflicted against young people. By highlighting the perspectives of young people, it throws the adult world into sharp focus. The play was originally inspired by Edward Bond's contact with students at Manor Community College. The play will be performed by the Classworks Theatre company in conjunction with its youth theatre on the 25th and 26th of February at the Cambridge Drama Centre, Covent Garden.
So I keep my mouth shut.
Look at yourself. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. Look at yourself. Look at yourself.
I have with me here Tony Midlane, a professional actress who plays the part of Joe's mum, Mrs. Carter, in Edward Bond's play, The Children. So Tony, you've been rehearsing and playing the part of Joe's mum now for almost a month. First of all, how would you describe Mrs. Carter, Joe's mum?
Well, I'd say to begin with, on the first accounts, you'd think she wasn't a very nice character at all. But there is sympathy for her, and she is in fact a victim. Although she tells her child to do something terrible, she has no choice.
Lives in somewhat impoverished circumstances, emotionally and materially, I'd say.
Yeah, that's very true, and she's had a very hard life. And I think in a way, although she seems to be a terrible mother, there is a part of every woman in her.
I've read the script for this play myself and seen scenes from rehearsals. Would you say that Edward Bond has a sympathetic or positive view of adults as a whole and their relationships with children?
I wouldn't say it's a very positive view. I think he's pointing out the harm that we do to children, although the characters are still very realistic, like the mother. She exploits her son, she manipulates him to her own means, and I think he's relating this to just adults in our culture.
Obviously, the children play a central role in the play, and in fact, Joe, your son, is one of the chief protagonists. Now, the mother-child relationship, is that something that you've played before in theatre?
No, I haven't at all, and I was a bit worried about it because I'm not a mother. But it's been very interesting, and I had comments from Edward that he did believe a mother-son relationship, which is good.
You burnt her? You're pretending to scare me.
It's okay.
You wicked boy!
Close door.
You burnt a house!
You said.
You wicked! When they find out the petrol on the floor! Take your shoes off. Give me your jeans. Or go to the bar. I'll wash everything. No. They'd still know. They detect everything. I was with Mrs. Pearce all evening. I'll get her to say I was here. Well, she phoned at 10:30 when the fire engines, and when she was on, I had to ask you something. She can vouch for that. Which proves you were here. You couldn't have done it. You wicked boy! Stop it. I'll wash your mouth out with disinfectant. Told you to burn the house. What mother would tell her child to do such a thing? She'd be a monster. No one would believe you. No. Don't mum me. I'm not your mum. Don't come whining to me when they... Oh my God. It started. It's coming to pieces. Stay there! You're not ducking out under their arms. Then they'd know this is a guilty house.
It's okay.
Where do they go? You don't know who it is. Might be about something else. How did they know it was this house? You were seen, you stupid, wicked boy! I'll be sent to prison for not keeping you under control. In bed! They'll find you in your socks! On my way! Coming! Right. Oh, this time of night. Coming. Next door will gossip if you stand on the doorstep. All their lights on. Heard the sirens. What do you want?
See James, cousin.
Oh, I'll take a message and give it to him in the morning.
The fire!
We know there's a fire. You got me up to tell me that?
Can we fix James?
No! It's bad enough fire engines racing up and down. I'm not waking him a second time now, if you don't mind.
Somewhere in the fire. Trapped.
I don't understand what you want to say.
Someone's dead.
Dead. How stupid it is. Stupid.
I felt in many ways that the relationship between Joe and his mother was almost loveless, perhaps not intentionally. Would you agree?
No, not at all. I'd say that the mother really, really does love Joe. He's all she's got. She loves him too much, and she needs his love. Without him, she has absolutely nothing. And I think the fact that she asks him to commit this crime, it's not so much she needs him to commit the crime, she needs to know that he will agree to commit the crime for her.
And what I was struck by when I read this script was I felt like deeply sorry for this boy who seemed trapped in such an extreme situation. Do you think many young people can find themselves trapped in very difficult emotional relationships with their parents nowadays?
Yes, I'd say a lot of them. And I'd say that the mother does intentionally manipulate Joe. And I think lots of children would find themselves in this situation because us as adults have the power. And we're not necessarily the right people to have that power. And I think this is what Edward is saying with this play.
Do you think he advocates giving children more of a voice and adults perhaps respecting more children's capacity to make positive decisions on their own behalf?
Yes, totally. I think he's saying we should listen to the children more and stop using them for our own means.
Now, one of the exciting and indeed unique aspects of this production is that each time it's played, you, as well as your colleagues, professional colleagues from Classworks Theatre Group, work with local kids and young people, whether they be from schools or youth theatres. Have you found that exciting?
Yes, I've been loving it, actually. Yeah, we're on our second cast of young actors now. We're only with them for a week, but the last group we were with for 3 weeks, and they're the ones that Edward wrote the play for, so they kind of discovered the play with us, and yeah, we had a really good time with them. They were great.
Was there any particular reason why Edward felt inspired to write a play, particularly for the students of Manor School, Cambridge?
Well, I'm kind of new to the area, but I know it's not the most affluent part of Cambridge, but the kids have got such spirit, and having met them just for the 3 weeks that I did, you can see why Edward came to this school and thought, yeah, these kids really deserve to have a play written for them, and I'd agree with that.
Now, one of the things I noticed also about this production is that the actual play, each time it's performed, it's not totally rigid. There's room for improvisation, which will be instigated more by the children than the adults. Why was that?
I think we have to remember that this play is for them. It's not our play as the adults, it is the children, and therefore they bring to it anything new. So every cast will find something new to bring to it to make it a different play each time. And as Edward came along and said to the first cast, this is your play. I don't care about the play. I care about you, and do with it what you want. And they are doing, which is brilliant.
And the children, I mean, obviously there are some like antagonistic or fight scenes, but overall, do you think that Edward Bond conveys a certain amount of warmth and tenderness on the part of children that perhaps we don't see displayed in adults today?
Yes, I'd say so, and I think the people who have had problems with this play, like the material in it, are the adults, whereas I think if you see the children, like after the first night, they were beaming, taking their bows, they're enjoying it, and I think maybe the reason Edward has taken this play is for an adult to see it and be disturbed. We should be disturbed by what we are doing to young people in this day and age.
I have with me here 3 of the members of the Classworks Youth Theatre who are all aged 15. And first of all, we have on my right, Nick Jones, in the middle, Jake Kerner, and on the left, Annie Crawford. First of all, what do you all personally think about this play by Edward Bond on children? Do you think he sees children in the same way that you do? Do you think he's got a good understanding of children?
I think he does have a good understanding, but he also has a point of view from someone who is older, and so he can look back on it, on his own childhood, and take experiences from that.
What do you think, Jake?
I think that it's more about teenagers than children, really, because, they rebel, and that's what the story seems to be all about. Not just about that, but, there's a good part of it about that. And I think that, perhaps he's remembering his teenage more than his childhood.
Yeah, that's a good point. All the kids do seem to be more in their teens. I wonder why he called it the children. Any ideas, Annie?
I think he wanted to build an image of innocence.
In terms of your character, Nick, because you play Joe, how did you feel? Because I know when I read the play, I really felt sorry for Joe, being manipulated quite strongly by his mother. How did you feel about your character?
Well, I think he's obviously hasn't got a very good home life because of his mother, but he has a line in the play which is, am I supposed to change the world? Which is kind of showing how the children and teenagers have the pressure of the older world, and Joe especially, because his mother is asking him to do all this stuff that she obviously can't.
Look, we're all suspects, right?
Yeah, the cops will come to the school.
Look, we'll tell your mum made you do it.
They won't believe us.
Well, it'd be worse if they did. They'll wonder why we didn't stop him. They'll say we're just as bad as him for not stopping him.
I didn't know, you never told me.
Nor me. I'm not telling you what to do. If you will.
minute, that's my dad's car.
Oh, shut up. Don't start that again.
Okay, that's very stupid joke, isn't it? Peterborough.
Shouldn't we like...
Listen! A kid is dead. That's serious.
Oh, come on, Ross, you know.
But we didn't know he was going to die. It's not like we planned it. Nor did Joe.
We didn't think. That's why he's dead. None of our fault, nothing.
Well, we
Let's
ran
not-
him as killers.
Let's get out of here. But it's not our fault. It's their fault. I mean, there wouldn't have been a fire in the first place if his mum hadn't said
Yeah,
anything.
well, your stupid mum.
Yeah. That's his fault, Joe. I'll come with you. Come with you. Come on, Joe. Come on, Joe. Come on, Joe. Come on.
My hands
Let's go. Sit down. Look after each other. Good, Joe. We're all coming. We're all staying together.
But in terms of how Edward Bond indeed depicts the abuse of power by adults in the play, do you feel that that's a valid point, Jake, that in the world as we know it, too often adults have the power to abuse children either emotionally or physically?
Well, I think what we've got to remember is I think that it has improved over the last 30, 50 years for teenagers, you know. So perhaps he's attacking what it was like when he was young. You know, I don't know exactly how old he is, but it must have been, you know, perhaps a decade or two ago, I expect.
So do you feel that teenagers today do have more of a voice, and a voice which is listened to by adults? Annie?
Definitely. We don't always appreciate the fact that we are very lucky compared to third world countries. And in the past, we were often beaten around and married very young and didn't have equal opportunities, especially for girls who weren't allowed to go to school, stayed at home, did the washing or whatever. And children were often abused by their parents, and they didn't really have much help at all. So perhaps Edward Bond is focusing on the fact that in the past, a lot of children were abused by their parents and nobody helped them.
Do you ever feel frustrated by the fact that there's so many stereotypes of what an adult is and what a child or teenager is, what an adult is capable of and what a teenager is capable of? Jake?
Well, I think you'll find that younger children will have a very strong sense of fairness. You know, that's the way they think. You know, well, surely if they threw that bomb at us, we should throw one back. You know, and when you get older, you start to realise that. But I think it gets to a stage where people who are so-called adults, you know, start thinking, you know, too much like MPs and things like that.
Now, are you saying that when children are young, they have a natural sense of justice, but as they get older, they're corrupted?
I think as they get older, they become older quite quickly. I think by teenagers, many teenagers act better than many, you know, people near 30. But as people get older than their teenage, you know, it's like the 10 years of being a teenager, and you start to watch the news a bit, and you start to get a better grip of what's around you and things like that, and then you can really make your own thoughts. But that's not really taken enough care of. You know, people think that you have to go to university before you can think straight. In effect, I think that people go to university, come out not thinking perhaps what they feel, just trying to get in power, perhaps.
There's the stereotype of teenagers is they want to rebel, and then when the children or teenagers in the play do actually do the ultimate rebel and leave their homes, for one reason or another, the entire world disappears behind them and they're left on their own.
What do you think that symbolises in the play?
Well, it's kind of the consequences of leaving what you know and who you know. And
Do you think that as people get older, that rather than doing what they know to be personally right, they often do what's convenient or expedient because of the pressures of the world as we know it?
For example, the mother decides that it's her son's fault because she feels she would not be accepted in society if they find out that she made her son burn her house down. I think when you become to adults, you tend not to think so much about what you'd like to be doing, but more on what would be accepted for your friends and the people around you, so you wouldn't be judged by anybody but yourself.
After the commercial break, you will see my interview with Claudette Bryanston, who directed the production. Now, Claudette Bryanston is in fact the co-artistic director of Classworks Theatre, who are producing this production of The Children by Edward Bond, which I should say will be shown this Friday.
That's right.
And Saturday at the Cambridge Drama Centre, Cambridge. And that's Covent Garden Street, for those who don't know. Now, Claudette, you are in fact also the director of this production. Now, I know that this production of The Children by Edward Bond is very special and unique in certain ways. Do you want to tell me something about that and Classworks Theatre Group's collaboration with Edward Bond?
Yes, it is. It's a very special production. Our company is set up to work with theatre specifically for young people and with young people. And in a way, this production fuses those two ideals because we actually have young people in the production as well as our professional company. So the young people become the company together with the core company wherever we tour, and obviously specifically for this production. This one's also furtherly very special to us because we're actually doing it with our own youth theatre, with Classworks Youth Theatre. So, you know, it brings together several important elements for us.
What made Edward Bond decide to collaborate with Classworks Theatre?
Well, Edward has known our company for many, many years, since about sort of 1985, in fact. And he was particularly visiting the school where we're currently rehearsing, the Manor Community College. And during that time, as he was listening and watching and observing the children, and saw the children, in fact, in a drama workshop situation, he was very inspired and moved by their ability, by their talent, by their, I suppose, by their worldliness, but also at the same time their vulnerability in lots of ways, and felt that he wanted to write a play for these children here in Cambridge. But I mean, having said that, you know, it of course is for all young people.
Now I have with me here something that Edward Bond in fact wrote about his play, The Children. He said, "The play describes a journey, one which could start from any modern town. But it is also the very ancient journey that all humans have had to go on since we first wanted to understand ourselves and take responsibility for our world. In the modern technological world, this journey is even more essential to our humanness. Our cultural media deny us our experiences in the very process which claims to fulfill it." Now that last sentence, Claudette, our cultural media deny us our experiences in the very process which claims to fulfill it. What does Edward Bond mean by that?
Well, obviously, it'd be best to ask him directly, but my understanding of what he means by that is that our cultural experiences in many ways are quite ephemeral, so that we're in a situation where we're exposed to the media, we can leave the space that's in, we can walk away from it, say particularly television. So a lot of, not all, obviously, you know, one can be very glib and make generalizations, but considerable amount of television deals with, say, a soap opera approach to drama, specifically, if we're talking about theatre and drama, which touches on events which are perhaps not really the true drama, not really truly dramatic in the sense that Edward means. So that when we are looking at live theatre and we're looking at plays, or the kind of plays that Edward writes, we're in fact going back to our psyche, we're going back to those big issues that perhaps drove, you know, the theatre of Shakespeare, the theatre of the Greeks, and in a sense perhaps are the underriding issues that affect us continuously. But I think what Edward would be saying is that sometimes we're dealing with the periphery elements, things that are maybe not that important but suddenly become terribly important, you know, materialistic and some sort of, well, I suppose, you know, the things that we fill our society with, which inevitably are part of any culture. I mean, it's not that one wants to be judgmental or anything, but that theatre, this kind of theatre, takes us back to a diagnosis rather than to the symptoms of the society.
Would you agree, as a theatrical director of this production and many others, would you agree that drama does facilitate human beings to perhaps understand and interpret their own life dramas more than the many television and filmic programs that we have thrown at us by the media?
I think that's absolutely right. I think you've explained it absolutely perfectly. I mean, theatres are called play. Play is something children do. They're playing out the reality of the world around them. And what does a theatre do? It's there to help us make sense of the world.
Now, going back to this particular play that you're directing at the moment, The Children, do you feel it has any particular relevance in today's world? Do you think Edward Bond perhaps felt pressed to write it because he felt that the position of children in the world today has reached perhaps a critical point?
I think that's absolutely right. I think, if we look at the stimulus of the play, from Medea and the children who are killed and say very little, we could look back over 2,000 years and say, well, how have we changed? How have we changed in terms of the way that we model ourselves for young people? Do we still lie in front of them? Are we still exploiting them? Are we still manipulating them? And of course, the answer is that we are.
Edward Bond has himself said about his own play that it deals with issues such as trust and responsibility, both between adults and children and between children themselves. What issues do you think he's particularly trying to highlight and get an audience to think about?
Well, the children go on a journey, and that can be seen perhaps to be a rite of passage through life. A journey is to some extent allegorical. And on that journey, they make all sorts of decisions about whether or not to take a burden with them. They're carrying a man who's very ill, he's on a stretcher. They make decisions about whether or not to help him, to give him something to eat, to drink, and so on. They make decisions about whether they accuse each other, whether they believe in one another. They're issues to do with trust, responsibility, notions of revenge, and also, of course, most importantly, forgiveness at the end of the play. So that on this journey, they discover a huge amount about themselves as they go on this journey. By the end of the journey, perhaps they've actually maybe found a path to growth. I mean, I wouldn't want to say adulthood, because that's sort of talking specifically of childhood to adulthood, but a personal growth. And I think that, Edward would say maybe some adults haven't been on this journey or had the opportunity to go on the journey. I would say that probably most of us know of the journey, but perhaps we haven't been able to achieve what we perhaps would like to achieve by having I suppose, in a sense, by immersing yourself in those particular situations. They're almost, if you like, trials, moments where you're tested, and how. So instead of being tested by adults, the children are testing themselves, and in a sense, that's important.
Would you say that? Certainly, when I read it, I felt that. Yes, the children are confronting and taking on, at times, quite a lot of collective and moral responsibility. Do you think the play, or certainly your interpretation of the play, did you feel that adults, to a certain extent, were abnegating on their collective responsibility for the world at large?
I think probably that's true to a certain extent, and I think most of us would say we are. Young people are passionate about the environment, they're passionate about issues that affect the world, and I think it's also true to say as you grow older you do become, unfortunately, very cynical. Many people do, and we tend to sort of look at the news and so on. After a while you switch it off and you think, well, what can I do? How can I deal with any of this? What can I actually do to, how can I make a stand? How can I make a statement? But I think making a stand is one thing. Making a big physical stand is one thing. And there's some incredible people, as we know, who do. But I think if we can at least challenge ourselves to think about the world, then that's something every adult can do, and nobody needs to, in fact, absolve themselves of that responsibility.
I wouldn't be alone.
Come on.
You have all of them.
Please. Yeah, do please come on. Can we go around?
I think of dead.
Slosh, be careful. Oh.
No, he's not. He's still breathing.
Look in his pockets.
The empty.
Careful, you guys.
Oh, you've got that.
Oh, we can't just leave him lying.
I'll stuff him. He'll be alright when he's home.
Let's take him with to meet someone. They can look after him.
Yeah.
Well, let's go.
I know, get a door from one of the sheds.
Yeah.
On that.
Come on, let's go.
Get out of here and touch him.
Okay.
We can't what that's all about.
Oh, God.
Dude, kill him.
Okay, right. Before you take him, do it gently.
On his head, not on.
Stop it, hey. How can you touch him? He's so good.
Maybe we shouldn't take him in.
It smells like death.
Typical, a tramp and can't walk.
3.
Okay.
What are you doing?
Whether you are a child or an adult, I hope that today's programme has given you food for thought. And if your appetite has been truly whetted, go and see The Children by Edward Bond at the Cambridge Drama Centre. And that's the 25th and 26th of February.